Right. Hello everyone, back with me again, and this occasion I would like to talk about an interruption. So in here we will talk a lot more about an interruption, like what is it and kind of what's the reason that we need to interrupt, and then we will have like what to do when we are getting interrupted like that. So before we started, I would like to introduce myself. Hello everyone, my name is David Chandrayabawa with student number below. So without any further ado, let's begin for the first one. The first one in here we have reason to interrupt. So what is interruption? We could know it. So an interruption is essentially a pause. When you pause a conversation, you will almost definitely draw attention to yourself. So it's important to make sure that your reason for interrupting will be seen as valid as the whole group. Giving someone important information, asking a question, sharing your opinion on something said, or interrupting to join a conversation are all acceptable reasons for pausing. Keep in mind that interruptions should generally be accompanied by either an apology or permission seeking question such as, "Do you mind if I join?" This is respectful for the speaker you interrupt and all those listening. You should also keep your interruptions as short as possible so that a conversation is not derailed by the interruption. Next up, we have the reason to interrupt. Interruption is not always negative, and it often even unavoidable. Interjecting can be necessary for a number of reasons, such as this: give a message to someone, ask a quick question, give your opinion on something that has been said, and join a conversation. If you find yourself needing to carefully interrupt a conversation for any of the above reasons, there are certain forms and phrases that you should use or so as not to offend or otherwise upset anyone. Sometimes you will use more than one of these phrases in order to smoothly interrupt, though interruption is often justified and forgivable. This conversation technique should be used sparingly. The first one in here is giving someone information. Use these short phrases to efficiently deliver a message or get someone's attention with conversation. These are effective whether you are giving information to an individual or to a whole group. Let's see the example. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but you are needed blah blah blah. I apologize for the interruption, but I have to quickly let you know that, pardon me, I have someone waiting, an object or information requested, and etc. I hope you'll excuse me for interrupting, but could I quickly get you to blah blah blah?" Move to the next one. We have asking quick information. Sometimes it's necessary to pause a conversation to ask clarifying questions. There are even times when you might need to stop a speaker to ask a question that is not related in the topic of the conversation. No matter what the situation, these short phrases allow to brief question during a conversation. For example, "I'm sorry for interrupting, but I don't quite understand blah blah blah. Sorry for the interruption, but could you repeat blah blah blah?" And then, "This will only take a minute. Would you mind telling me blah blah blah?" And then, "I apologize for interruption, but I have an important question about blah blah blah." Move to the next one. This is the polite way to the material that we said before, the polite one. So, alternatively, you can use question as a polite way of joining conversation. Here are some ways that you can ask for the permission for a group to become part of their discussion. Let's read this one. Could I jump in? Could I add something? Do you mind if I say something? May I interject? Like that. Next. The next one is sharing your opinion. Use caution when interrupting to share an opinion or story, as these are unwelcome interjections when they are not relevant, happen too frequently, or are impolitely executed. If you feel that you have something to share or comment on as a conversation is happening that will add value to the discussion, use these phrases to considerately do so. That makes me think of blah blah blah. Interesting that you say that because blah blah blah. What you said about reference something said reminds me that blah blah blah. Your point sounds an awful lot like something else, blah blah blah. Always pay respect to a speaker you are stopping and never make it seem like you believe what you have to say is more important than what was already being said. The last one in here is joining conversation. Sometimes you will want to join a conversation that you were not originally a part of. In these cases, you can insert yourself into a discussion without being rude using the following phrases. Would you mind if I joined? I couldn't help overhearing blah blah blah. Sorry to butt in, but I think blah blah blah. If I may, I feel blah blah blah. Move to the next theme in here we have what to do when we are interrupted. Just as you will sometimes need to interrupt, you will sometimes be interrupted too, perhaps more frequently. If you are the speaker, it is up to you to determine how to proceed. Decide whether you want to reject or allow an interruption, and then respond accordingly. The first one in here is interrupting someone who has interrupted you. So in this case, you are decline someone who interrupt you. You don't always need to allow interruption. Use the one of this phrase to firmly but respectfully redirect the conversation back to yourself. If you were interrupted rudely or believe that you should finish your thought first, you have the right to express this without being considered impolite. Please, let me finish. Can I continue, please? Let me wrap up my thought before you start. Would you please let me finish? And then the next one is allowing interruption. You may choose to allow an interruption if you don't mind being stopped. Respond to a person who has asked if they can interrupt you, like this one. No problem, go ahead. Sure, what do you think? That's alright. What is that you want or need? After either you declining or accepting it, of course, after the listeners said about their opinion, you should back to the topic. So once you've been interrupted, you can continue where you left off when you were interrupted with one of these phrases. As I was saying, I think blah blah blah. I would like to return to my argument to get back to what I was saying. I feel blah blah blah. Continuing where I left off, blah 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 blah. For the last one here, we will together learning how is the conversation begin for interrupting. The first one in here is the example of interrupting to give information. So in here we have Helen, Anna, and George is in a conversation. Let me read it for you. It's really amazing how beautiful Hawaii is. I mean, you couldn't think of anywhere more beautiful. Excuse me, but Tom is on the phone. Thanks, Anna. This will only take a moment. Can I bring you some coffee while she takes the call? No thanks, I'm fine. She will be right back. And then the last one here we have interrupting to share opinion. In here we have Marco and Stan. If we continue to improve ourselves in Europe, we should be able to open new branches elsewhere. And then Stan say when he is not yet a part of the conversation. I couldn't help but overhear you talking about opening new branches. Do you mind if I add something? And then Marco said, of course, go ahead. Stan said, thanks, Marco. I think we should open new branches no matter what. We should be opening the new stores whether or not our sales improve. And then Marco said, thank you, Stan. As I was saying, we improve sales, we can afford to open new branches. So in here we know that Stan is cutting the interrupting the conversation and Marco accepted. So I think that's all for now. I hope you could understand more about interruption. And well, I think that's all. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and goodbye.